Hello and welcome to the Boostara podcast. I'm your host, James. Um, we are Boostara AI, where we help companies boost growth, cut revenue, and gain insights. If you are interested in learning more about what we can do for you, please type the words growth into the comments below, and I'll be sure to reach out to you. Today, we are joined by the amazing Hamish Rutherford, co-founder of Floe Technologies. Hello, Hamish. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me on. We've actually got a sunny day in Newcastle after a very rainy weekend, so starting the week off well.
Yeah, we were just saying that, right? We always lament the weather as much as we can, right?
Well, exactly. It's either too wet, too hot. It's never right.
Brilliant. Well, for our listeners that maybe are unfamiliar with yourself, Hamish, could you just give us a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, and the journey that you've been on as a co-founder so far?
Yeah, I won't bore you pre-Flow, but I set up Flow Limited about 4.5 years ago, which was a co-working company. We designed, built, and managed co-working spaces in Newcastle. We got to about 3 spaces, and then last July, I split my original business partners and set up Flow Technology with my new business partner, Alex Ventusay. He's the CTO, I'm the CEO, where we've got Floe Spaces, which is an online marketplace to support rural independent co-working spaces. And the new one that we're kind of here to talk about is Floe Reporting, which is an AI carbon reporting tool for serviced offices.
Mm, amazing, amazing. I really just looking more into you guys. Really love the idea of service spaces that cater to people in smaller towns. I mean, I'm familiar with the likes of WeWork in the bigger cities, and I guess that's your main sort of differentiator is the people. We don't all live in big cities, right?
Exactly, and that's the thing. It's like big cities are amazing, and there's some incredible operators like WeWork, and there's lots more coming into the market. But there's a side of as people post-pandemic have also increased moving into rural cities. Rural cities, rural towns. Is that how do we cater for those people instead of always having to commute at the same time, which is no one really likes a commute when you're stood next to someone's armpit for half an hour. So like, how do we create these communities and hubs and connect them together? Because if you look at in Northumberland, there's an amazing place, Same Space in Hexham. There's Space at in Whitley Bay. These places exist, but it's quite hard to find because they're sort of they're challenging some of the much bigger national providers that have a much bigger marketing budget. So if you type workspace near me, you will get the big providers and you don't always see the place that's near you. And those smaller communities are great for reducing loneliness, increasing sort of economic spend in rural locations. They've got so many benefits that's why Flow Spaces tries to support those guys.
Interesting. And is that, if you don't mind me asking, is that from your own experience trying to find a space to work at? Is that what sort of sparked the idea of Flow in the first place?
Yeah, well, the original idea, I was actually working in France managing some luxury ski chalets. And
Mhm.
when the pandemic hit, then I was like, the way we fundamentally work and live is changing. And I grew up in Newcastle and kind of looked at the UK. And it's like someone had drawn a line at Leeds and gone, that's the north. And kind of forgotten that we've got all this great space in the northeast. And that's why I came back to Newcastle, set up Flow to be like, we need more co-working spaces. We need to
Mm.
bring people together. We had a real focus on bringing startups, founders, angel investors, professional services, getting them all in a room. And now there's lots more in the northeast, which is good. But now it's like the city centre is dealt with. What about the rural spaces? So that's what Flow Spaces mission is, to try
Right,
and connect them together.
right. And how was that connected to Flow Reporting? And just for listeners to maybe understand at a first sort of level, I've kind of likened the idea of Flow Reporting a little bit like your EPC certificate when you're buying or selling a house, right? You see the energy the efficiency rating of it. This is what it could do, and this is where you're at the minute. You need to do better. You need to make these changes to get to that potential, right? Yeah, could you just kind of explain briefly what flow reporting is, and what the connection is with flow spaces?
Yeah, so Flow Reporting spun out of Flow Spaces. So from running co-working spaces, serviced offices, and speaking to other providers over the last sort of 4.5 years, we realized there's a real problem with now that tenants are asking more and more that they want to do their carbon reporting. That puts a lot of sort of admin stress on the operators, because to work out your carbon report for your office, you need access to your utility bills, your electric, gas, water, and waste. Now, if you just have one office, that's quite straightforward because you pay the bill and you get the invoice each month. But if you're in a co-working space or a serviced office, you don't get access to any of those invoices. So it means that the tenant has to ask the workspace. Now, if you've got 20 different offices asking you that either monthly or quarterly or even yearly, it really adds up. So what happens is a lot of the time people can't get access to the data, so they have to speculate on their carbon footprint. So what Flow Reporting does is we've created an AI product where workspace operators can just forward their invoices to our product. It rips all the data required, calculates the carbon report for the entire building and each individual office, and it does it on a monthly basis. So you can have that visibility of where you're at, and you can set a target for what you want for the year. So you don't need to wait to the end of the year and then go, "Ooh, have we done well? Have we done bad?" So you can actually make adjustments month on month. And as you mentioned, EPC, like you can upload your EPC to the product as well, because what we found, there's flow reporting's in two sections. There's the compliance side and the reporting side. So the compliance side is workspace operators can upload EPC ratings, your planned maintenance, your insurance, to make sure that everyone who's in that workspace knows they're in a safe workspace and it's all being dealt with, and like yearly inspections of aircon, water, Legionella. You wouldn't believe how many things need to be inspected yearly in a serviced office. I didn't realize until I had to do it myself. And that's why we've got this simple file sharing tool on the compliance side, just to make it easy. And that means that teams can work on supporting growth of businesses, supporting people. If you're having a bit of a flat day, I'd much rather like workspace community managers can actually interact with people instead of frantically sort of trying to send compliance documents and utility bills on emails, which is a nice bit of, we hear a lot about AI taking jobs, but what this does instead is allow somebody to really do the job they want to do of interacting with people, because this won't remove the need of a community manager or a receptionist or a building manager. What it does, it frees up their time to actually interact with people.
Yeah, and not running backwards and forwards trying to get different documents sent over, and not actually having meaningful conversations on how they can better serve the clients within the co-working space, right?
I guess also speeding it up fundamentally, because you can do it in, everyone just has access to it, instead of, even if someone did actually have all the documents, that email chain is still 4 or 5 deep. So if you get that done in a week, you're doing quite well, but you normally don't. So this literally takes minutes and it's all there. So it just speeds. So your customer experience is much better too.
How has compliance sort of changed, developed over the years, and also where is it kind of going towards? That I guess begs the need for this kind of reporting service. You said a little bit about like the water compliance, that kind of is it really like a big kind of issue if companies, small business owners, people are using co-working spaces, maybe not aware of yet? What should they be aware of in terms of their compliance?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest one is on sort of like the carbon side, because
Mm.
and one thing we're focusing on the carbon reporting and not like a pure compliance portal, because there's some incredibly complex, incredible systems out there to do your plan maintenance. Our compliance is a file sharing that you can see everything's there. But the carbon side, as we build up to net zero 2050, which is a legal responsibility that as a country we've signed up to, what we need to do is the biggest is waste. So waste in April, the biggest compliance change was if you have a company that has more than 10 employees, you have to now separate your food waste from your general waste. So that was a big thing that happened in April that a lot of businesses had no idea was coming. And then
Mm.
suddenly you have to do it.
Mm.
So then on the waste side in 2027, there's planned sort of a waste carbon tax coming in. So it's like, okay, how do we start baselining where we're at? How do we start improving sort of our recycling, increasing the percentage of what's recycled instead of going to landfills? By 2030, companies like Mars have said they want to be net zero. And the biggest thing compliance wise, at the minute, if you're 250 staff or above, you legally have to report on your carbon reporting, which means if you then want to be anything to do with their supply chain, you now have to start report on your carbon and have an ESG strategy of like, how are we going to improve? And the biggest thing at the minute, it's not going, well, you have to be incredible and you have to reduce it by 50%. It's going, what people need to do is know where they're at and have a plan to start reducing that. And that's our big mission with Floe, is making carbon reporting accessible. And
Mm.
accessibility for us means simple, transparent, and affordable.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people see carbon reporting as this very expensive, very complicated thing, and it puts them off because it's really hard running a business. And the last thing you want to do is go, oh, we've got another compliance
Yeah.
legislation that means that we've now got to foot a bill, like NI's gone up, the cost of living's gone up. And you can see businesses going, we can't take another hit on our bottom line. So what we're trying to do is like, here's a really cost-effective tool that uses AI, that means that you can have a nice report and you can start slowly improving where you're at, but you can't improve what you haven't measured. So that's the phrase I realize I keep saying
Yeah.
constantly. I don't know who coined that phrase, but they're very clever.
It fundamentally, I mean, utilizing the AI tool that you have, it's in time saving, right? And it's just like you could spend hours and hours and hours, days, weeks doing all your accountancy information yourself and not knowing, blundering through, or you can just get a simple tool that will bring it all together, right? And take away the stress. So you can do what your business needs you to be doing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
otherwise it kind of feels like whoever is sat near the CEO when they say we're doing ESG, just goes, right, you're doing it now. And you think, I don't have any experience in that. So it's supporting those people, because it's expensive to have a dedicated ESG expert in a business.
Mm.
So it's like, how do we just it's a big sort of education piece of like, this is where you're at. And that's for, we are very clear that we are not ESG experts. We are co-working serviced offices and like and sort of tech experts. So this is very much the data sharing,
Mm.
and we are not here to say how to make it better. We're here to go, this is where you're at, and we can work with other consultants to speed up their process.
Mm.
And that's the last thing we ever want to come across as we're greenwashing. We're saying, this is what your data is.
Mm.
How do you make it, and how do you improve from this point on?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I, yeah, I suppose the trickle down for you is that you've got co-working spaces, right? Are your clients to take on Floe Reporting, and you're obviously in the co-working space as well, up in the northeast. And then that trickle down is then the customers that use the co-working spaces would benefit from this, obviously, right? Just wondering what do you think are the biggest sort of misconceptions that people have about a co-working spaces, those shared spaces, and whether they should or should not use them, and especially coming from a post-COVID age of work from home. Work from home, that's what you need to do, right? But then also in using this kind of like AI type program for the reporting. But yeah, what sort of misconceptions do you kind of see?
I think one of the biggest ones is when everyone says co-working, they think of WeWork and they think these incredible buildings, and it's like everyone's having a laugh after work and everyone's having a beer and playing ping pong. The reality is a lot of people just come to work and want an ergonomic chair. They want a nice desk. They want their screen that is at like same eye level, so they don't have what's the phrase, the corporate shrimp, where you've got a really bad back. And the whole thing with it's like posture. And it's like co-working is a way to be working around other people and to hopefully reduce a bit of loneliness. And for me, the big thing is I really don't like working at home, because I want my home to be where I switch off, and I struggle with my mind to switch off anyway. So I really need clear parameters to go, okay, I'm going to go over there and work. Now, obviously, I'm probably very biased because I've been in the co-working industry for 4.5 years and being like, well, everyone come into a co-working space. It's great. And for some people, it isn't. Some people, like, you look like you've got a lovely office where you are. And if this is in your home, it looks an ideal setup. So there is no one solution for everyone. Some people really have an aesthetic value and they want this beautiful space with high vaulted ceilings, exposed sort of services, and they want the best coffee machine. They want to be able to put this sort of latte art. Some people couldn't care less and just go, I actually want a space that's just off a motorway. That means I can get there, free parking, I've got a comfy chair, I can do my work 9 to 5 and I'm out. And I think what we'll see more of is the rise back of like the business park, because the business park has taken an absolute hammering over the last since COVID, really, because they've just been empty. People go, oh, well, I'm not going to go there. And I do think there'll be a cheaper option, because at the minute, all the co-working space is city centre and it's really premium. And some businesses either don't want to or can't afford those high prices. So I think what we'll see is co-working will become a lot more categorized into much sort of different offerings, which I hope it moves into sort of like a hotel structure, because with hotels, with the starred ratings, you know exactly what to get. And at the minute, co-working is they vary from location to location. So I'd like to see there's more structure of like, okay, well, this is the pricing point for here. This is like your premium grade A in the city centre with every, like, we've got free meditation, we've got free smoothies, we've got everything you can ever want. Because we used to put all that on and everyone says they want it and no one turns up to the events.
Right.
So it's I think we'll become much more linked with what people really want, and hopefully they have more choice as supply increases, which it is very much, because it's your traditional office. A lot of people don't really want to have a 5-year lease and put a 50 grand capex down because they've put in a new kitchen and they bought chairs and desks, particularly in an uncertain world where I think AI has a big part to do with that uncertainty, and people want a bit of flexibility.
Very interesting. I think the offerings, like the idea that you could have a 5-star co-working space, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star is very interesting, because it isn't just a case of all co-working spaces are exactly the same. I think you mentioned it before, that like the audio, right? The way sound bounces within your co-working space or your particular area is very important, and sometimes completely overlooked by the developers that are creating the spaces. I do remember a long time ago in my my professional history meeting some, I can't remember what you call them now, but their specialism was in like audio construction. So specifically working at schools, at theatres to ensure, for example, if it's a school they're building, that the front of the classroom where the teacher is speaking, the sound can bounce appropriately, right? And I guess that's very important for people that are having calls. They don't want that background noise. They want to ensure each space where they are, they can have that private moment on call. But
Yeah.
yeah, in a well set. And if it's just a case of throw desks in, we've got 3 floors and there's no thought put to it, then that's probably where you're going to your more 2-star co-working space.
And I think particularly in a world where neurodiversity is becoming a lot more like accepted as a real thing, and people are going, oh, actually, I find background noise really triggering.
Yeah.
It's hard because if you look at it purely from a business point of view, the ideal thing would be to have an absolute row of desks, like almost like a call center. But the reality is no one's going to go there. So there has to be this fine balance of going, okay, well, we need loads of phone booths, but the phone booths don't want to be too small because it feels like you're in a tiny jail cell. But then meeting rooms can't be too big because then it's wasted space. So what classically happens is the one that's really spot on is really expensive.
Yeah.
So then that's why there's the raise of the serviced offices that will probably be off a motorway somewhere in a business park where it's maybe an office, maybe our size, 4 desks in here. It means that it never gets too loud. You can have a few people having a conversation. And it's that morph of going, okay, I'm going to go to a co-working space on 1 day a week, meet up with a load of people, but then I need to come back and focus on my work. But that's my preference. And I think the interesting thing is it's quite hard not to sort of be led by your own bias, because I know I've got a big driver for aesthetics. So I love space. I love speaking to people. Alex, my co-founder, has been on holiday this week. This is the first day I've come into the office. It's Monday now, but last week. And because I just don't work well just by myself. So it's hard not to have bias when you're designing these spaces, because what makes us so great as a community is we're all so different, but that makes it unbelievably challenging to make a workspace.
Yeah. So were you talking about the challenges there? I mean, because co-working spaces, I feel like it's gone through maybe a slightly turbulent time, as a lot of industries did with COVID, and the bigger players within the market, some have fallen, new ones have come up. Has there been a moment with Floe where you've sort of questioned what you're doing, questioned the direction or the capability of the industry, and you're still here, I suppose? How have you overcome that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the big moment we had was at the start of this year, where we had just built our Flow Spaces platform, and that was something from the very start, like 4.5 years ago. That was my big vision. We building our own co-working space was never the intention, but situations happened. I was like, oh my God, well, we've got this great opportunity, let's do it. And then in July, finally sort of set up Flow Technology and built this marketplace and this platform. And I did the classic founder thing where I'm like, everyone wants my vision. And then when it came to people wanting to buy it, I'm like, oh, the market isn't quite big enough. And we built this thing, amazing design, amazing marketing. The product was built incredibly. So the whole team had done their thing, and then it was left on me to sell it. And I was like, oh God, I feel like I've let the team down because I'm not bringing in the sales. But what I realized is, unfortunately, the timing where we released that was when NI went up, cost of living was awful, and people were like, we don't have extra budget we want to bring people back into the office. So actually having a membership for them to use any of your workspaces across the Northeast just isn't in our budget. And that was a crushing time where we then had to let the product designer go, the marketing manager, and we built an amazing team. And that was January was absolutely devastating, because when you bring someone into your team, you feel responsible for them because you sell them this dream, they're excited, they're doing well, and having to let someone go through no fault of their own is tough. But from that, then we were like, okay, the carbon reporting element is a massive problem. And turning that negative round into going, okay, what is a real pain point right now? How can we build off the great stuff we've been doing with the flow spaces, okay, flow reporting, and then you've got to have that self-belief with the team and have some real upfront, honest conversations of going, right, let's really push for this and see if we actually start getting traction. And then we did a pilot, which went really well. And then speaking to the operators who are like, this is really what we need. And we've got a few very exciting partnerships that we can't talk about at the minute that are brewing away. So there's definitely, I think anyone who says they've never doubted themselves is either superhuman or lying. And I think there's something really powerful about us to try and normalize like the ups and downs of having your own business, because it is a brutal thing. It's a beautiful thing. But if you're doing any kind of innovation or trying to push and like really stretching yourself, you are going to have moments or days or weeks, sometimes months, where you're like, I hope I'm onto something and I hope I'm not just a lunatic. So that's where you really need, good people around you to like sense check and go, and set times as well. We always set, okay, if we've got nothing by September, we'll call it a day, because otherwise you can get caught in this sort of founder complex of, well, what was that submarine? Was it last year that exploded?
Oh
Well,
yeah,
imploded.
yeah.
Like, I remember when that story came out, being like, my God, I can see how he was the founder, he was the CEO, he was on the submarine, he believed in his product so much, he ignored all the warning signs. And I think someone should write a book about that whole journey, as a kind of like, any founder starting something should be like, make sure you read this as like this is the worst case scenario of what can happen if you just purely see the positivity that you will inevitably have.
That's very well said. And so much of your own sort of self-identity and just personal feelings go into that when you get that deep, right? And like I said, that can sort of blinker you from what you should be doing, right? Or the other signs that are happening around you, and you surround yourself with good people, more intelligent people, help steer the path that bit clearer, right? I suppose going forward, in the next kind of 5 years, how do you see the kind of trends in co-working spaces, in the kind of reporting that you've set up? How do you see that kind of changing or developing into the future?
So I probably would say this, but I see it as like the reporting becoming like a hygiene factor. It's just a case of like, we expect that. Why would we not? I don't want to chase you for this. I see as carbon reporting starts being mandated more, and you actually start getting fines for incorrectly reporting, I kind of see it more like it will become part of your financial report. So that way it needs to be easy and simple. And a lot of our system is based on Dex that we use. Dex is this incredible AI tool that puts all of your invoices and it categorizes them before it goes into Zero. And we've been using that. We use Zero for accounting, Dex to put all of our receipts, all of our invoices, and then it links to Zero. And that's where it got me thinking like, well, we should do this for all of our utilities, because like, why are we manually changing this, putting it in a spreadsheet, calculating things? So it's kind of just folding into an accounting process, because I can't do my end of year accounts and go, this is our number. We conveniently made zero money, so no tax for us. So it's like, well, let's have some proof there. So that's where I see it becoming much more regulated, and it has started to change where some of the bigger players are starting to be fined for greenwashing, not being transparent, making numbers up. So that's why one thing of our things is transparency. And we've deliberately gone for the kind of 90% of the SME market. And that's why our product is affordable, because we know that if we come in as the big players, people go, well, I'd like to do that, but I just can't afford it. So I was speaking to someone last week after we last spoke, who just has a single office in Manchester, and he was like, "Well, actually, this would be great just for my office.
Mm,
So could you actually do an offering for just a single?" So we're looking at that and maybe going, okay, well, he was like 20 quid a month. I'd absolutely pay for this, where it just means I can put in my reports, my sort of utilities. It brings me a report, and it's a problem that they just lost a tender because they didn't have a ESG carbon reporting strategy.
right.
So he was like, I'm not going to pay like too much for it, but 20 quid a month, like it would be super simple. It's nice. I can have it all there. It takes me a couple of minutes a month to upload them, and I've got my documents there. So
Yeah.
that's what we're also looking at going, okay, what other verticals can this fit into and help people with?
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And just, I mean, that example shows the power AI can have to just eliminate inefficiencies, eliminate
Hmm.
um, that sort of administrative time that we spend in our day-to-day life. And obviously, you've created the tool that can allow people to do that. So I can see you're obviously a big supporter of AI. But I'm kind of wondering, at your level and then actually running it as a business, how is AI having an impact on you as a business owner? And where do you see the sort of, I suppose, the positives and the negatives of the use of AI?
Yeah, well, I suppose for us, AI has been an enabler because when I was running physical spaces, like, if you ask anyone who's known me for the last 4.5 years, when I was running physical spaces, I was just a bit of a lunatic where I couldn't control, I was all over the place. I was running from one meeting to another meeting.
Mm,
Like, admin was just absolutely swamping me, which had a load of really negative effects on personal relationships, like business growth. I realized that I was a blocker because I couldn't work out a strategy to, and there's people who do it much better than I do. Clearly, operations isn't my thing, but AI has then allowed us to create this product to save people who are really time poor. So I'm a big advocate for it. I get why people are scared of it because it's kind of going, well, could this take my job away?
mm,
And for some jobs, it probably will. But then it's like, how do we, as business leaders, go, okay, well, if it's going to take that away, how do we actually free up you to do something else? Now,
mm,
that relies on people caring about other people, which, if you look at history, isn't always the case. So I can see why there will be some losers out of this, and I think it'd be naive to say there won't be. But I think any kind of evolvement in sort of evolution, there's always someone that's going to lose out. But we need to make sure, how do we protect as many people as possible and free up the admin tasks that people don't really want to do. There's an amazing book by Dan Martell, which is Buy Back Your Time. And one day when I advise everybody to read it because for your personal life, your business life, it's just incredible. One of our tenants, amazing guy in Newcastle, serial entrepreneur, he just came up to me one day and was like, read this book. I clearly looked very stressed, and it's all about going, what's your value to your business, to your community? And I realized I had loads of low value admin work that was just swamping me and giving me no energy.
yeah,
And that's where I think AI can really replace that and leave us to do the more creative, interesting work. So that's what I really hope it does.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I can't promise that, but I will do my absolute best to make sure my part of the world I'm in is, if it replaces something, okay, how do we create an opportunity for someone to do something else they might want to do?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really telling what you said that like people are scared that AI will replace them and they'll be out of a job. But equally, for a company, if they want to grow, then it's how do you use your staff more efficiently to leverage them to do more high level activities, right? Because some companies may just see it as, oh, I can get AI to do this, so I can take away that employee, take away that salary, right? Replace,
Yeah.
which is happening, which a lot of places are doing that, and that's I think what's fueling that kind of worry. But at the same time, for that company doing that, if they kept that person on, um, and they're capable of doing something at a higher level, then that's what's contributing to your growth as a company, not just cutting the costs, right? I
Yeah.
think that's the difference, and maybe we'll see in companies how they use it to their effect, but then still understand and maintain that growing a company and growing a team still remains the same. It's just automating those administrative tasks, and to build a good, strong team needs that human connection, needs that focus on developing a future for your team members. And if you're not doing that and just automating everything, then the company is probably only going to go so far, because the greater minds
Yeah.
together in the room are going to produce something much better, right?
And those team members who've been there for years have such a knowledge base. So that's where I think what you'll find is companies with really good cultures will really thrive, because what they'll suddenly. Now, I was at a manufacturing event with the uni last week, and they were talking about smart factories. And there's this great product, SQCDP, that is sort of taking a very paper-based model where you literally scribble in each day, is it green, amber, red,
Mm.
and you convert it just on an iPad. And it was then allowing that it was understanding the operators on the factory floor have such knowledge about what's going wrong, what's happening, and being able to free up their time to do something quickly on an iPad, and actually to be able to them to put notes on there and going, oh, the machine's making a strange noise.
Mm.
It's green, but something feels different. And taking that knowledge and actually empowering your staff and seeing that you have, it's not just the top of your company that has all the
Yeah.
insights and the vision, it's actually everyone, and using technology to make that accessible, because you can't have everyone at every board meeting. One, everyone will be bored mindless.
Mm.
And one thing we don't need in life is more meetings. But that's where I find technology can really bring that communication into a new sort of a new era,
Yeah.
because otherwise you miss a lot of that. Someone's been on that machine for 20 years. Normally, that probably people would see that as quite replaceable as
Mm.
technology sort of comes in, but actually that person's knowledge of how things work, and if that can increase your productivity by say 5%, or it
Mm.
reduces your downtime because they know when the machine doesn't sound right, it's really
Mm.
powerful. So I hope culture becomes a much stronger piece to
Mm.
balance with AI. Otherwise, there is a risk where you just go, oh, great, we can just save 20% off our bottom line by firing everyone and using AI, which there
Yeah.
will be some businesses that do that. But I have hope that we've got the ones that go, we can actually grow this even more and have a happier, more engaged team as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. And talking about a team, what's next for Flow, going forward, into the future? Where are you looking to take Flow Spaces, but also Flow Reporting? What's your kind of vision going forward?
So our big focus is on the flow reporting, and it's really taking it as a global product. So that's some of the conversations we're having at the minute. The minute our model is based on the GHG protocol, which is UK based.
Mm.
But what we want to do is be able to offer this for the world, and to be able to benchmark everyone against each other, because we all live on the same planet.
Yeah.
So you can get a global emissions factor that is very specific to different regions. And what we want to do is open this up. And hopefully some of these conversations we're having will lead to that. But that's our big push, to sort of to access this to as many businesses as possible, to get them on that journey to understanding what their baseline is, how can they improve it. Over 2050 seems a very long time away, but in terms of business time, it isn't. So it's
Yeah.
like, how do we slowly change? Someone the other day had this lovely analogy of like, either we can go from a caterpillar to a butterfly, huge transformation overnight,
Yeah.
or we can go from a tadpole to a frog.
Right.
And I really like the tadpole to the frog analogy, and I think it taps into AI of going, there's a clear transition where you go from a tadpole to a frog, completely different at the very start to the frog, but you can see how it gets there. Caterpillar to butterfly, I think that's where people get scared because overnight you think it's all changed and we don't know what to do. But
Yeah.
if we can be more tadpole to frog, I think the world will be a better place. That's nothing against butterflies; they're very nice. But...
and I can imagine that in itself, it's a huge challenge, right? Because every country has its own specific differences on the way that they're tackling energy efficiencies. Just, for example, food waste disposal. Even within the UK, it's completely different. Different setups in different council areas, right? How do you go about overcoming that challenge, right? Is it just a case of every single country you're going to deal on a sort of one by one basis?
Well, I definitely don't have the answer for all of that right now. But it's that, and because you could also go, well, actually, carbon emissions in different countries are. We were massive polluters when we had our industrial revolution. If you look at other countries that are having their industrial revolution, is it fair to benchmark them? Big questions, and I'm not going to try and claim that I have all the answers. But what I do want to do is that is the mission that we want to go on and go. There will be so many things that I haven't even possibly thought of that crop up. But it's like, what we need to do is go, what data do we currently have? So when we have that data source, and then how do we make it accessible for people? Then what we can start working, going, well, this is where we're actually all at. Because at the minute, I don't think we really know where we're at. We've got a target where we want to be, but I don't really, and I might be wrong, maybe I just don't know where we're at, but someone else does. So if that person does, I need to find that person and then bring them on the journey. And I think that's the thing of going, for all of us to have the answers, like there's just no way that's possible, but we need to sort of be working towards something. And that's the big aim.
Yeah. And I think it's just an awesome vision and challenge to take on, right? It's a meaningful one.
Yeah, and I'd quite like to. I don't have kids yet, but I really do want kids, and I'd quite like them to have a nice place to live and grow up. And if they have kids, and I'm not saying I'm going to single-handedly save the world, but again, I think if we can all, as a collective, go, well, this is my little patch. What can I do?
Exactly.
And even if that's just making some workspaces less stressed, and if that's all I manage to achieve, like that's a nice thing too.
Brilliant, amazing. Thank you, Hamish. If anyone wants to reach out to you directly, Hamish, what's the best contact details to get you on?
Yeah, so we've got you can find the floe.co.uk. Everything's on there. Or if you want to send me an email, it's very simple. It's hamish@thefloe.co.uk. So, or on LinkedIn as well. I spend far too much of my life on that platform, but it is very good.
Excellent. I'll put those details in the bottom notes of this video. But thank you so much for coming on, Hamish. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hamish, and thank you everyone for listening today.